Welcome to First Baptist Church in Sweetwater, Texas. We join in with our pastor, Jerry Hendricks, for this week's message.
I don't know how you guys feel, but Easter is just one of those moments that you don't want to miss. I've been reminded this week in thinking through the process of getting ready to come be with you guys that over half of my ministry career, I sat where you sat on Easter Sunday morning. And my impression was, for whatever reason, it was one of those days when the pastor seemed to speak louder and longer than any other time of the year. I will assure you this morning that I will not speak longer than I normally do. And I will assure you that due to my voice, I will probably not speak very loud as well. It's been one of those weeks for me. I got here to church last Sunday morning, and I get real excited about Holy Week. I mean, I planned my week out. I knew exactly what I was going to be doing every day during Holy Week so that I could celebrate the significance of the risen Christ on this day with you. And I got here last Sunday morning and had coffee with the guys at 7:30, and I started talking and realized I didn't have a voice. Now, there's probably a better time to discover that than right before or about 2 hours before you're supposed to speak. So I got myself together. I got back to my office. I got some tea and started going through the process. Well, I made it through that, and if you listen to the recording, it doesn't sound too bad, but those of you who were here, you know that I was struggling. Monday, I had 3 different meetings, one at 10 o'clock in the morning that lasted for about an hour and a half, and then 2 on Monday night that are our regular monthly meetings. By the time we finished, I was done. I had another event that I was supposed to be a part of on Tuesday, and I finally, at the last minute, just said, I can't be there today because I knew they were going to be taking some tours and doing some things that were just going to be detrimental to this poor voice that I had. If I could ever in my life have had a do-over, the last week was one of those weeks I would have had a do-over. And then I remembered something I'd heard a long time ago that is really for me as a believer in Jesus Christ has framed my life most of my career. And it's this, that no matter what happens to me throughout the week, it can be high or it can be low, but come Sunday, I'm going to rise again on Sunday. And you know, that's not something that I just made up. I read it in Scripture. When we understand the story of Jesus Christ, and we have one of those Mondays where we're thinking, oh my gosh, I've got 4 more days to go, and we're off track already. You just let it ride. You just let it go. Tuesday's going to come. And I know that on Tuesdays, we want Tuesday to turn around. That's kind of a turnaround Tuesday. If Monday goes bad, then Tuesday's our opportunity to make it right. And then boom, we're in. We only have a few more days to go. And maybe it doesn't go as well on Tuesday either. And then there's Wednesday, that hump day where you think, okay, we're over the hump. But then you realize that just means you're only halfway. And if this thing is rough, the ride's going to get worse. Let me tell you something this morning. I want you to know this, that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is real, and it's real for your life. And no matter what you go through Monday through Saturday, you have the opportunity in your spirit and in your life to rise again. I think that's probably shaped why I enjoy coming to church. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't think, oh, well, you're the pastor, so you're paid to be in church. Let me just tell you this. 3 years ago, when I retired, they had my retirement reception on one Sunday. The very next Sunday, I was with my wife and kids in another church worshiping. This is where I want to be. One time when we were at Cross Point Fellowship, Teek and Stacy had joined our church, and I'd said something to Teek about it. I said, I really don't like being gone. I don't like missing what happens. And if you've been around here for the last 2 years, you know that I'm not gone a lot because I don't want to miss what's going on. And Teek said, I just thought that was preacher speak. I didn't know that you really missed being there on Sundays. But now, then we began to talk about it. We began to understand it. Let me tell you something. There's something significant about the things that we do on Sundays. And we don't want to minimize that to any degree. We also don't want to minimize the significance of this day. It's a special day. Maybe you've gone through some special things to prepare for this day, and you're ready to celebrate in your own spirit and in your own life. And we want to encourage you this morning in your spirit as God is filling you. You just let loose. You let that God let his Spirit loose in your life, because that's real life. That's what I want to talk about real quickly this morning. If you have a text, let's look at John chapter 20. I want to read some verses. And what I want to do is for us to really just to kind of cut through the clutter of our life, to press pause on the events for the rest of the day, and just think about for a moment some of these things. We're going to read this story. Now, this gospel writer, John, he tells the story in a little bit different way than the other gospel writers, but we want to hear what he's saying to us in the experience of these in this text. And then we want to look at our own life and begin to think about our experience with Jesus in regard to the resurrected life that he's demonstrated for us. Because we have a response to that. We respond by the way that we believe. We respond by the way that we live our life. We respond by the way that we treat others. Let's read. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running. She went back and ran to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They've taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they've put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb, and both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter. And I don't wonder why he puts this in there. I mean, seriously, he wants us to know that he was faster than Peter. But it's there. It's real life. It's real life. And we got the story. Okay, we get it. Both were running, but the other disciple which is me, John, the writer, outran Peter and reached the tomb first, and he bent over and he looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but didn't go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight to the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple, by the way, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and he believed. And they still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. There's a little outline sheet in your program if you want to follow along some of my thoughts this morning about trying to understand this life that Jesus not only lived before us and demonstrated before us, but also the life that he offers us through what he's done for us. Because we want to capture that this morning. If you're here this morning and you're wondering what the big deal is with Easter, this is what it is. This is the big deal. If you're a believer in Jesus and you've kind of been on the outside looking in, this is an opportunity for you to understand for yourself more deeply what this is all about. It's this kind of life that he talks about that's so significant and so important. The Easter message of one of real life. It's not a life that we just dream of in our own minds, in our own hearts, and begin to want to experience in our own life. But it's God demonstrating for us in his own life the life that we can have. The resurrected kind of life, the renewed life, the empowered life, the abundant life that each one of us who says, "I'm going to follow Jesus," each one of us can have that, and we can grasp that, and we can take that, and when we do, it begins to make a difference in our life. God's life is with us, and our life with him. God's life is with us, and it's our life with him as well. When we think about this kind of life, if we want to have an experience of what hell is like, it is life apart from God. And there are times in our lifetime when we try to live apart from God. And we may have even described that in our experience as hell or as a living hell. We know that experience at times in our life, and that's not God's intention for us. God's intention for us is to know the life that he has given and he has provided for us. It's God's life with us and our life with him. It's demonstrated through his love for us. As God looks at his creation and he wants to be a part of us and us to have fellowship with him and us to understand our worship with him, the best way for him to do that was to demonstrate his love by coming to be with us. And in being with us, we see the demonstration of that love. Even though the disciples, and here's the difficult part when you read that text, there was so much chaos and so much that they wanted to learn and to know, that they were also guilty of missing over and over what it was that God was doing in their life. In other words, it would be as if God demonstrates his power to them and they missed it completely. And we see just a glimpse of this chaos over the last week and even this morning, that as the events begin to unfold and as they begin to become, God begins to reveal what's really happened in the life of his son Jesus Christ, they're gaining an understanding, and that understanding is gaining momentum in their life. It's God's love for us. It's us beginning to understand life after life. He also demonstrates for us and shows us the potential for life. In other words, I believe that when we begin to understand and walk with Jesus, we understand that life does not have to be ordinary. You see, when you look at Jesus' life, and you think about those that were close to him and followed him, they were often confused, but they were often amazed. And I think what we long for in our life and in our experience is to come out of the confusion and walk into the amazement and live in the presence of God in our life. He came also to show us how to serve. You see, Jesus, as he walked among his disciples and he began to demonstrate what love really looked like, and he began to share his life, he served in a way that they didn't quite understand. He even, and we've talked about this over the last few weeks, he even broke a few Sabbath rules. With God's permission, by the way. And he's God's son, and he demonstrates this serving attitude that we have in the kingdom of God. And then he shows us the possibilities as he prepares us and as he sends us. In the next few weeks in our church life, we're going to talk about exponential. And in talking about exponential, what we're going to be doing is talking about the power of God in the church. We're going to look specifically at the early church. So what's going to happen is we'll look at the events that immediately follow the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. And we're not just going to look at that and say, how strong of a church can First Baptist Church be? That's not the intent of that at all. The intent is as we think about the possibilities of a life given to Christ, fully devoted to Christ. What happens when multiple people begin to give their life to Christ in a congregation? What is the exponential effect of God in a community when that begins to take shape? We're going to be looking at those kinds of things, and I believe that as we look at this, when we look at this text today, I think we see it begin to be demonstrated as Jesus walked and lived among his disciples. The message from his life is one that's to be understood and to be shared. One of the things I want to help you with this morning is this. If you are in a place where you're confused or you're doubting faith and doubting this relationship with Jesus Christ, I want you to hang in there. There's no point for you at this stage in your life, at this stage in your experience, to stop where you are and say, I can't get there yet. It's not open for me yet. I don't quite understand it. What I want you to do is this. I just want you to hang in there. And as you live life, you continue to ask God to show you life. You don't have to believe yet. You can still doubt and struggle and try to make your way along, but continue to just look for that one thing, that life that Jesus Christ gives to every person that believes in him. Hang in there. It's difficult sometimes to understand. We come to the end of this text, verse 9, where it says that they still had not quite absorbed what was taking place. They hadn't quite captured what it was that Jesus was going to do in their presence and the significance of that once they understood that he had been resurrected. They'd seen it demonstrated. They'd seen life to death to life again in the life of Lazarus, but they had not made that association with what Jesus had done for them. So they began to clarify that. And in clarifying, you begin to, as you clarify and as you move out of your doubt and out of your your stubbornness, what you begin to see is there's a life on the other side of that God has opened up for you. What they didn't even think about at this moment. There's too much going on in their experience. They're overwhelmed. They're just looking for Jesus. They're not looking for the message of the resurrection. They're just trying to find Jesus because they think someone has stolen his body. His body, not his life. They're looking for his body. And Jesus came to give them life. As we understand this, we know that oftentimes following Christ means that we have to understand beyond logic. You see, there's where we get caught up in our doubt, and our struggle sometimes is that we just want understanding. We want to figure it all out. We want it to make sense. And then when it does, then we'll take that step forward. That's not faith at all. As we begin to describe faith and discover what faith really is throughout the latter parts of the New Testament, we know this morning that's not faith at all. Faith is beginning to believe, and then through that belief, God continues to affirm and affirm and affirm until you come to that place where you no longer just believe, but you know that God has come through the life of Jesus to clarify that. And here's how I think that he does that, or at least one way that I think that he does that. Look back at your text again. In verse 11, Jesus has this post-resurrection encounter with Mary. I want you to imagine what this looks like as we read this together this morning. I want you to picture this and walk with them, jump into this experience. It says, now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. And as she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. And they asked her, woman, why are you crying? They've taken my Lord away, she said, and I don't know where they've put him. She's still looking for the body. She hasn't discovered the life yet. She's talking about a body. And at this, she turned. Maybe she sensed a presence, and you know how sometimes that happens for us? You'll know someone else is in the room, or someone else is nearby, or hovering around. It says in verse 14, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But here's the catch. She didn't recognize him. She's looking for Jesus' body. She doesn't know that Jesus is alive. So she sees someone near her who she ought to recognize, and the scripture says that even looking at him, she didn't recognize Jesus. That is a desperate life. It's a desperate life. To be looking for Jesus. To see him and not know him. He goes on and he asked her, woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you're looking for? Thinking that he was the gardener, she said this. Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him. And Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned toward him, and she cried out in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. And Jesus said, don't hold on to me, for I've not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I'm ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and to your God. And Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, I've seen the Lord. And she told them that he had said these things to her. When I started ministry, I was a student minister. And I believe one of the most dreaded tasks of a student minister is they make you lead recreation for Vacation Bible School. This makes no sense at all. I have no expertise with that children, not even my own when they were that age. Let Sharon take care of them. I let Sharon raise them up till they were 12 or 13. Then I said, I've got this. So I'm in charge of recreation. I barely know what's going on. I'm in this new church, and I don't know much about discipline and how to get kids to go. It's just like herding cats, I suppose. And so you're out there for Vacation Bible School, and all of a sudden I thought of this trick. So a kid would be misbehaving and whatever, and I'd walk over to them and, I postured them. I'm not going to lie. I postured the situation, and so I go over, and I don't get on their level. I hovered, and I'd get my hands on my knees, and I'd say this: tell me your name. I'd make them give me something. Now, they didn't know how significant that was, but they gave me their name. So next time I saw them doing something they weren't supposed to do, I didn't tell them what to do or what not to do. I just called them by name. Through that, I've learned that there's power in a name. There's significance in a name. And when Jesus looked at Mary and he called her by name, he made a connection with her. Here's what I want to know this morning. I want to know this morning, right now, is Jesus calling your name? Now, I don't know the circumstances in your life. I don't know why Jesus might be needing to call you by name. I don't know all of that, and I don't need to know all of that, but I'm just wondering this morning, as you come together, as you come to a place where you're ready to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ, is there just a chance that Jesus spoke your name this morning? Is there just a chance that Jesus, in all of this, wants to get your attention? Is there a chance that through this, God has something to say to you? Not through what I've said, but only through speaking your name. One of the things that's a reality of a time like this is that sometimes we get lost in the distractions. We get lost in the shopping and the preparation, and a lot of you have meals to prepare and egg hunts to prepare, and a lot of things going on for the rest of the day, some travel ahead of you. It's easy to let the message get lost in the distractions. But amidst all of that this morning, let me just encourage you to hear Jesus call your name. Would you stand with me and let's pray? Lord Jesus, we know that you came to live among us to make it personal, to make it relational. And God, we enjoy so many of the relationships that we have with one another, but we don't want to do that and miss the relationship with you. God, capture our attention this morning. Let our own name ring throughout our ears and our head and our heart this morning, knowing that you're calling our name. God, let us respond to you. God, help us to know what we ought to do next in our life. Because all we know today is that we love you, and we can't thank you enough for you giving your life for us. God, just help us. Help us to understand and to live above the distractions. This is my prayer in Jesus' name.
Thank you for joining us at First Baptist Church. We hope you can join us again, online or in person, in Sweetwater, Texas, as we learn to live out God's calling in the world around us.